Just charge it to your card, my brother mocked, expecting me to pay for his lavish party. I left right away. An hour later, my phone exploded with messages. The city skyline stretched before me, glittering under the evening sky as I sat in my car outside the lavish venue. Inside, the music thumped and children laughed, the sounds of an extravagant birthday party that I had unknowingly funded. I adjusted my tie, exhaling slowly. Tonight was Lily's birthday, my niece, and for years I had played the role of the generous uncle, paying for her school, her clothes, even this over-the-top celebration. And yet I knew how this night would end. Jacob, my younger brother, had always been the golden child. Growing up, our parents showered him with praise and attention while I faded into the background. He was the charming one, the one who got away with bad grades, reckless spending, and every mistake because he just needed a little guidance. I, on the other hand, was expected to be responsible, to pick up the slack, and as I learned over the years, to be his financial safety net. At 38, I had built a successful career as a software engineer, earning well and living comfortably. Meanwhile, Jacob had burned through every opportunity handed to him. He had dropped out of college, jumped from job to job, and somehow managed to convince our parents, and me, that his failures were never really his fault. I had covered rent for him when he was between jobs, which was often. I had paid off his debts when creditors started calling. I had even co-signed for his car loan, a sleek BMW he flaunted like a prize, despite never making a single payment himself. I told myself I was doing it for Lily. She didn't deserve to suffer because her father refused to grow up. But the truth was, I had let it go on for far too long. The final straw had been a quiet realization over coffee one morning, scrolling through my bank statements. I had spent tens of thousands of dollars on Jacob over the years with nothing to show for it. He had never repaid a cent. Never once had he called to say thank you. I wasn't his brother. I was his ATM, and tonight I was about to face that reality head-on. With a deep breath, I stepped out of the car, straightening my suit as I walked into the upscale banquet hall. The scene inside was as excessive as I had expected: crystal chandeliers, an ice sculpture, a hired magician entertaining a crowd of kids. Everything screamed money, yet I knew Jacob barely had $1 to his name. "Look who finally showed up," Jacob greeted me with a grin, drink in hand. He was dressed in an expensive suit, likely paid for with the money I had lent him last year. "Happy birthday, Lily," I said, forcing a smile as I handed my niece a carefully wrapped gift. Her small hands tore at the paper eagerly, revealing a set of books I had picked out just for her. She beamed, hugging me tightly. "Thank you, Uncle," she chirped. Jacob, however, barely glanced at the gift. "Books? Man, you really are boring," he scoffed, shaking his head. "You should have just given her cash like everyone else." I clenched my jaw, brushing off the comment. It was nothing new. As the night progressed, I found myself cornered into conversations with Jacob's friends, men I barely knew, all feeding off his easy charm. "So, what do you do?" one of them asked, swirling his whiskey. Before I could answer, Jacob leaned in, laughing loudly. "Oh, my brother, he's a total workaholic. No social life, no fun. Just sits in front of a computer all day, probably still a virgin." The laughter that followed echoed in my ears. My hands curled into fists at my sides. He was humiliating me, in front of his friends, in front of Lily. I had let him leech off me for years, and this was my reward. I should have said something, I should have called him out, but instead I stood there, my face burning, my heart pounding. And then he sealed his fate. "Anyway, no worries, big bro," Jacob continued, clapping me on the back. "You're covering the bill tonight, right? Just charge it to your card like always." That was when it all clicked. I wasn't his brother. I was his wallet. And I was done. I didn't say a word. I simply turned on my heel and walked out, ignoring the confused murmurs behind me. Outside, I pulled out my phone, and with a few quick taps, I froze the credit card he had been using. Then I blocked his number. As I drove away, the weight that had sat on my chest for years finally lifted. Jacob was about to learn a lesson, and I was finally free. The air inside the car felt heavy, thick with the weight of everything I had just left behind. My fingers tapped against the steering wheel as I replayed Jacob's words over and over again. "Loser. No social life. You're paying, right?" He had humiliated me in front of his friends, in front of Lily, in front of an entire room of people, laughing as if I were nothing but a walking bank account. For years, I had ignored the resentment bubbling beneath the surface, convincing myself that I was helping, that I was being a good brother. But in that moment, standing there while they laughed at my expense, something inside me finally snapped. I pulled into my driveway, the silence of my home welcoming me like an old friend. It had been a long time since I made decisions for myself rather than for Jacob. But tonight, that ended. I went straight to my desk, flipped open my laptop, and started making calls. The first was to my bank. I canceled the additional credit card Jacob had been using, the one he swore was just for emergencies, but had racked up hundreds of dollars each month at restaurants, clubs, and clothing stores. Then I called the school where I had been paying for Lily's tuition. It wasn't fair that she had to suffer for her father's irresponsibility, but I couldn't keep financing his life under the guise of supporting her. The administrator hesitated when I explained I would no longer be covering the payments, but I was firm. If Kelly, Jacob's wife, wanted to work something out, she could contact me directly. Jacob, on the other hand, was done. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the long list of payments I had made for him over the years. Rent, car repairs, vacations he had no business taking, loans that were never repaid. The final total made my stomach churn. Tens of thousands of dollars, years of enabling, years of being disrespected in return. I shut the laptop with a finality that settled deep in my chest. The first call came within the hour. At first, it was a text from Jacob. "Dude, what the hell? My card isn't working. Did something happen?" I ignored it. 15 minutes later, another one. "Bro, call me. There's a problem with the bank or something." Then came the calls, over and over, his name flashing across my screen. I silenced them. It didn't take long for the messages to change in tone. "Are you serious? You canceled my card? What the hell, man? I needed that. Why is Lily's tuition paid? You're screwing me over. Do you even care about your niece?" The anger, the entitlement, the complete inability to acknowledge what he had done, it was all right there in his words. I didn't respond. Instead, I powered off my phone and went to bed for the first time in years without the weight of Jacob's problems hanging over me. The next morning, I woke up to even more missed calls, this time from my parents. I let out a bitter laugh. Of course, Jacob had run straight to them. I hesitated before calling them back. I already knew how this conversation would go. My mother picked up on the first ring, her voice sharp with irritation. "How could you do this to your brother?" she demanded. I took a slow breath, keeping my tone calm. "Do what, Mom? Stop paying for his life? You know he's struggling," she snapped. "You've always helped him. What changed?" I almost laughed. What changed? Years of being used, years of being treated like a joke. "What changed is that I finally woke up," I said. "He called me a loser in front of a room full of people while assuming I'd pay for his entire party. That's what changed." There was a pause just long enough for me to know that she wasn't surprised. "Honey, you know how Jacob is," she said, her voice softening in that familiar, manipulative way. "He doesn't mean half of what he says. He's just selfish," I cut in, "and I'm done funding it." "You're punishing Lily," she accused. My stomach twisted because that was the one part that actually hurt. I cared about Lily. None of this was her fault. "No," I said firmly. "I told the school that Kelly can reach out to me if she wants to talk. If she needs help with Lily, I'll find a way. But Jacob, I'm not giving him another cent." My mother let out a frustrated sigh, like she was exhausted from dealing with me. "You've always been so cold. He's your brother. He needs you." "No, Mom," I said, my voice steady. "He needs to grow up." I hung up before she could say anything else. Hours passed before Jacob tried calling again. I almost ignored it, but a part of me wanted to hear his excuse to see if he would own up to anything. I answered. "Are you done acting like a selfish asshole?" He spat the second I picked up. I let out a dry chuckle. "That's rich coming from you." "You left me with $1,000 bill last night," he seethed. "Do you know what I had to do to cover it?" "I don't care," I said simply. "I had to leave my Rolex as collateral," he yelled. "Are you happy now?" A grin tugged at the corner of my lips. "Ecstatic. You ruined my life, man, you." "No," I cut him off. "You ruined your own life. I just stopped paying for it." Silence. For the first time in a long time, Jacob had nothing to say. I let the silence stretch before speaking again. "Find a job, pay your own bills, and if you ever talk about me like that again, don't bother calling." I ended the call, feeling lighter than I had in years. Jacob had no idea how much worse things were about to get for him, and for once, I wasn't going to be the one saving him. The storm hit within days. At first, Jacob was too stubborn to admit just how much my decision had wrecked his carefully constructed facade. But the cracks started showing almost immediately. By the end of the week, his frantic calls had turned into a full-blown meltdown. My mother had left me 3 voicemails in the span of an hour, her tone shifting from disappointment to desperation. My father, usually silent on matters between us, even sent a clipped text. Talk to your brother. This is getting out of hand. I didn't respond. I wasn't responsible for Jacob's life, and I sure as hell wasn't going to fix the mess he'd made of it. But then, late that evening, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I hesitated before answering. Hey, it's Kelly, Jacob's wife. I exhaled slowly. Hey. There was silence, then a sigh. Look, I know things are bad between you and Jacob, but I need to know the truth. Did you really stop paying Lily's tuition? I rubbed my temple. Yes, but I told the school to let you reach out to me if you needed help. Another pause, then a bitter laugh. Of course you did. Jacob made it sound like you were cutting Lily off entirely. I should have known. Anger flared in my chest, but I swallowed it down. Kelly, I don't want Lily to suffer, but I can't keep financing Jacob's life. There was a sharp intake of breath, then a slow, measured response. I get it now, she murmured. I didn't before. I thought maybe you were just being tough on him, but he never told me where the money came from. I just assumed he had savings or a trust from your parents or... I let out a humorless chuckle. Nope, just me for years. Silence stretched between us, then softer, he lied to me. I didn't answer. There was nothing to say. She cleared her throat. I need to figure out what to do next, but I appreciate you being honest with me. The call ended, but I knew that conversation had just set off a bomb in Jacob's life, and I was right. Within days, Kelly had uncovered just how deep the lies ran. The tuition, the rent, the BMW, even the extravagant birthday party. It had all been paid for with my money, and now, with that lifeline gone, everything was crumbling. Kelly didn't waste time. She packed up her things, took Lily, and left to stay with her parents. Jacob lost it. The first I heard about it was through another one of my mother's voicemails, her voice tight with barely restrained panic. Your brother is in trouble. Kelly left him. He's losing everything. Do you really want to abandon him like this? Yes, I did. But I didn't say that. Instead, I ignored the message and went on with my day. Jacob, however, wasn't willing to be ignored. It started with more texts, more calls, more messages from unknown numbers. Then he showed up at my apartment. The pounding on my door was relentless. I considered not answering, but I wasn't in the mood for him waking up my entire building. When I opened the door, I barely recognized him. Jacob, who always prided himself on looking effortlessly put together, looked like hell. His hair was disheveled, his expensive shirt wrinkled, and there was a wildness in his eyes that I had never seen before. You happy now? He spat the second I opened the door. I leaned against the frame. What do you want, Jacob? You destroyed my life, his voice cracked. Kelly's gone, she took Lily, I lost my apartment, my car. I cut him off. No, Jacob, I didn't destroy your life, you did, I just stopped funding the fantasy. His face twisted in fury. You think you're better than me? He shoved a hand through his hair, laughing bitterly. Sitting here in your fancy apartment, acting like you're some perfect saint. I never claimed to be perfect, I said coolly. I just know how to take responsibility for my own damn life. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. You don't even care, do you? I care that you humiliated me in front of an entire room of people while expecting me to pay for your lifestyle. I care that you took advantage of me for years and never once said thank you. I care that you only see me as a bank account. His mouth opened, but I wasn't done. But I don't care about fixing your mistakes anymore. That's your job. For the first time since the conversation started, his bravado faltered. His eyes darted away, his shoulders sinking just slightly. Just help me one last time, he said, and this time his voice was quieter. Just enough to get back on my feet. I swear I'll pay you back. I exhaled, shaking my head. No, Jacob. His eyes snapped back to me, wide with disbelief. You're really going to let me fall? I met his gaze. You already fell, I just stopped catching you. A long silence stretched between us. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. The silence didn't last long. Jacob wasn't the type to accept consequences quietly, and my parents weren't the type to let things go. The calls kept coming, each one more urgent than the last. At first, I ignored them. But after a particularly persistent streak of messages, I finally picked up one evening, bracing myself for the storm. You have to fix this, my mother's voice came through, sharp and accusing. I let out a slow breath. Fix what? Jacob, she snapped, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. He's lost everything, he's barely getting by, he's your brother. I rubbed my temple. And, she sputtered, as if she couldn't believe my indifference. He's struggling and you're just sitting there doing nothing. This isn't how family works. I clenched my jaw. Funny, I don't remember anyone stepping in to help me when I was the one handling all of his problems. My father's voice cut in deeper, more controlled. It's gone far enough, son. He's your little brother. He made mistakes, but you don't just abandon family. I let out a bitter chuckle. That's rich, coming from you. You never abandoned Jacob, but you sure as hell abandoned me every time you chose him over me. The words hung heavy between us. My father was silent for a moment before exhaling sharply. That's not fair. No, I challenged. Every time he screwed up, I was the one cleaning up his mess. Every time I needed support, I was told to be the responsible one. For years, I paid for his rent, his car, his daughter's education, even his damn birthday parties. And what did I get in return? Mockery, disrespect. You don't get to call me the bad guy now that I finally said enough. You're being cruel, my mother said, her voice tight with frustration. He's living in our basement. He has nothing. He's miserable. I scoffed. And whose fault is that? Another silence. You don't get it, she said eventually. You've always been cold like this. You never had Jacob's heart. He's always been more sensitive than you. I let out a humorless laugh. Right, Jacob is sensitive. Sensitive enough to expect everyone to bail him out while he treats them like garbage. Do you even love your brother? She shot back. I closed my eyes, my grip on the phone tightening. I did love him, but love isn't a free pass to treat people like dirt. Love isn't letting someone use you until there's nothing left. My father sighed. So that's it, you're just done with him. I'm done with being his safety net. My mother's voice dropped, softer now. And Lily, you're just going to abandon her too. My chest tightened. That was the one card they had left to play, and they knew it. No, I said after a beat. I already set up a college fund for her. I made sure she's taken care of, but that money, it doesn't go through Jacob. He doesn't get a cent. I could hear my mother's breath hitch, hear the realization sinking in that I wasn't bending this time. This isn't how family should be, she whispered. I exhaled. No, it's not, but that's not my fault. I hung up before she could say anything else. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Jacob must have realized that my parents weren't going to convince me to change my mind, because a week later, he showed up at my office. I spotted him through the glass door, disheveled, thinner than I remembered, dark circles under his eyes. There was none of the usual arrogance in his stance. I considered calling security, but instead I stepped outside, arms crossed. I need to talk to you, he said, his voice hoarse. I sighed. You have 2 minutes. He swallowed, looking around as if the weight of standing here asking for help was suffocating him. I messed up. I arched a brow. You don't say. He shifted uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his neck. I didn't think things would get this bad. Kelly's gone. I can't see Lily. I don't even have a damn car anymore. I waited, saying nothing. He exhaled. I just need a little help, man, just enough to get out of my parents' place. I swear I'll get back on my feet. I tilted my head. Like you swore to pay me back all the other times. He flinched. This time's different. I shook my head. No, it's not. His jaw clenched. So that's it. You're really just going to watch me suffer? I met his gaze, steady and unyielding. No, I'm going to let you finally take responsibility for your own life. His hands curled into fists at his sides. You're such a selfish bastard, I smirked. And yet, for years, I was the only reason you had a roof over your head. Funny how that works. His face twisted with anger, but he didn't have a comeback. I'm done, Jacob, I said, my voice calm. You want to fix your life? Do it yourself. You want to see Lily? Get a job, prove to Kelly that you can be a decent father, but I'm not fixing this for you. His eyes burned with resentment, but there was something else there too, something raw, something uncertain. For the first time, he had no safety net. I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there in the cold. It was the last time I saw him for a long, long time. Months passed. My parents still weren't speaking to me much, though I heard from Kelly occasionally. Lily was thriving. Without Jacob's recklessness draining them dry, Kelly and her family had managed to provide a stable home for her. Jacob, he finally hit rock bottom. He burned through the last of his savings, got fired from another job, spent some time couch surfing before finally taking a job that was beneath his standards, bartending at some low-end place across town. And for once, he had to stand on his own. I never reached out. But one day, nearly a year after it all started, I got a text from an unknown number. I get it now. I stared at the message for a long time. Jacob wasn't fixed. He probably never would be. But maybe, just maybe, he had finally started to understand. I didn't reply. Some things he had to figure out on his own. Looking back, I realized that loving someone doesn't mean carrying their burdens for them. It doesn't mean sacrificing your own peace to save someone who refuses to save themselves. Setting boundaries wasn't cruelty. It was the only way to break free from a cycle that had drained me for years. In the end, I didn't abandon my brother. I simply stepped back and let him face the consequences of his own choices. And for the first time, I learned that real love, whether for family, for others, or for yourself, sometimes means letting go.